of Ontario in November 2009. He is the first member of the Green Party to be elected to the Ontario Legislature. Mike has taken some thoughtful and considered positions in the legislature. He's a strong advocate for local and municipal-wide issues. At any time we have met with him, he always listens very carefully and asks very insightful questions. He is a successful entrepreneur and small business owner and champion for small business, local food, and sustainable communities. This is Mike's second time addressing AMO delegates, so please give a warm welcome to Mike coming to the stage.
Bonjour. Merci, Jamie, pour la gentile introduction. It's an honor to be here with you today, and I want to just take a quick moment to thank Pat Vanini for your years of service with AMO, and also to welcome Brian Rossborough into your new role and just how I'm looking forward to working with both of you. I want to take a moment to express how grateful I am for this opportunity to meet here in Ottawa on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. I believe as elected officials, we have a responsibility to learn from Indigenous peoples how to be good stewards of our land and water for our children and our grandchildren and the next 7 generations. And I know that everyone in this room takes your role as stewards of your communities seriously. I admire you for that, and I respect you. I know the other leaders have given a shout out to their caucus members who are here in the audience today. But I just want you to know that I insisted that 100% of the Green Caucus be here with you today. And I want you to know, as leader of the Green Party of Ontario, I'm committed to having our entire party work with you to improve your communities today, tomorrow, and for the next 7 generations. You know, there's an old saying that if the provincial or federal government shut down, people probably wouldn't notice for a few days. But if municipal government shut down, people would know immediately. And it's true because you are on the front lines. You have the unenviable task of doing the most with the least amount of resources. And last year I stood before you, and I pledged to do everything I could to work with you to push the provincial government to close the $4.9 billion funding gap that municipalities face. And I wish that I could stand here before you today and say that we've made progress on closing that gap. But unfortunately, after listening to the Premier's speech yesterday, I believe Ontario is going backwards and not forwards. And I believe you deserve more respect, and the people of Ontario deserve better. It's wrong for the Premier to download the province's fiscal challenges onto the backs of municipalities. I want to remind him of something he often says. There's only one taxpayer in Ontario, and that's the citizens of this province. Putting more pressure on our property tax bills will make it more difficult for municipalities to invest in the services and the infrastructure and the amenities that make our communities such great places to live, to work, to invest, and raise a family. And I believe it is fiscally irresponsible to cut funding for public health care when we know that it's going to cost more in health care costs in the long term. To cut flood protection at a time when we know flooding is on the rise. To cut child care services when young families are struggling to afford to make ends meet, and to cut social services at a time when our most vulnerable citizens are facing a housing affordability crisis. And so I want to tell you, I was so inspired by the way municipalities came together to fight Schedule 10 of Bill 66, to say no to opening the Greenbelt for development, and no to undermining the Clean Water Act in Ontario. And again, when you came together to say no to cutting already passed budgets retroactively, and I hope you'll forgive me for being a bit of a homer. But I want to give a shout out to Guelph's Mayor Cam Guthrie, who as chair of LUMGO, spoke out for municipalities across this province and pushed the government to reverse their retroactive cuts. I want to make it, please give Cam a round of applause. And so I want to work with you, and I also want to be clear that I want to work with the Premier to get Ontario's fiscal house in order without downloading our fiscal challenges onto the backs of the most vulnerable or municipalities. And it starts by being honest with people. And here's the bottom line that the Premier often ignores. Ontario has the lowest per capita spending of any province in this country and the lowest per capita revenue of any province in this country. And no slogans, no amount of gas pump stickers or tax-funded propaganda networks will hide those facts. Yes, Ontario can find savings. I would start by at least means testing the Fair Hydro Plan, which is the one program that the previous government put in place that completely blew the budget deficit into the red. But we also have to look at Ontario's revenue challenges. We can begin to address this by reversing the tax cuts on the wealthiest Ontarians that were in last fall's economic statement. And we can take a hard look and ask why the largest province in this country has the lowest per capita revenue based on natural resource wealth of any province in Canada. And these are the tough questions and the honest conversations we need to have at Queen's Park. And so I'm determined to having the fourth party to be there to force these conversations, because I think our democracy is better and is improved when we add more voices and new voices to the conversation. So in the past year, I've worked hard to offer something more constructive than what we've seen in the past, because I believe it is part of the DNA of Green parties to be more cooperative and less confrontational, to be more concerned about putting people first rather than scoring political points. And that's why I'll compliment the government when they expand GO services, when they bring in an associate ministry for mental health, or when they bring in producer responsibility regulations. It's why I work so hard to bring the other opposition parties together to speak out against Bill 108, which is having such a negative effect on municipalities. There was even a day at Queen's Park where in a matter of 15 minutes I voted on 3 motions from the 3 other parties. And you can imagine the uproar that created on the floor of the House. But that's exactly what municipal councils do every day. That's what the best of municipal government is all about. Checking the partisan labels at the door when you come into that council chamber to put the people of your communities first. And I don't think it's too much to ask Queen's Park to do the exact same thing. So I'm calling on my colleagues from all parties to tone down the toxic political rhetoric we see at Queen's Park, to learn the best from our local councils about how to have vigorous debates and strong disagreements without hurling partisan insults at each other. And there's no better example of the absolutely essential need to do this than when it is for us to come together across party and ideological lines to address the climate crisis that's on the doorsteps of our communities right now. Flooding, forest fires, shoreline erosion, loss of tourism dollars, fields too wet to plant in and too dry to grow crops in, $1.3 billion of insurable infrastructure losses last year alone in Ontario, Last August, in 3 hours, the City of Toronto experienced $80 million worth of infrastructure damage due to extreme rain. The costs are mounting. You are feeling it in your municipal budgets, and our children, most importantly, our children are begging for leadership on this issue. And what we are facing now is only the tip of the iceberg. And trust me, I was a bit terrified last week when 11 billion tons of ice melted from Greenland's ice sheet. But here's the bottom line. The people of Ontario are problem solvers, not problem deniers. We've answered the call of duty in the past, and we can do it again now. We know that we have to fight to have a livable planet for our children's future. But it's not just about that, though I would say having a livable planet's a pretty important thing to have. But I would argue it's an economic imperative that we embrace the $26 trillion global clean and caring economy. Global automakers will invest $255 billion over the next 5 years in electric and low-emission vehicles. And the question is, will Ontario lead the EV revolution, or will we lose jobs to it? Ontario ships $24 billion out of our province to purchase energy inputs from other jurisdictions. So the question is, will we keep that money in Ontario, generating Ontario jobs and building Ontario businesses, or will we continue to put stickers on gas pumps? Do we want to expand our chemical industry by sourcing bio-inputs from Ontario farmers instead of from big oil, or lose market share to the companies and the jurisdictions who embrace bioplastics? Do we want to support home builders and developers who want to build energy-efficient buildings, who help people and businesses save money by saving energy? Or do we want to continue to cut the very programs designed to help families? Do we want to incentivize sprawl or protect farmland, which absorbs excess floodwaters? Yeah, please go ahead. I'm all for protecting farmland. It's the asset base of 850,000 jobs in this province, contributing $40 billion to the provincial economy. So do we want to pave over it, or do we want to protect it? Imagine what our province would look like if 120 years ago, our great-grandparents had doubled down on horse carriages and buggy whips instead of embracing auto manufacturing. Imagine what this province would look like if we hadn't bought into Sir Adam Beck's vision of powering this province with low-cost, clean hydroelectric power. And I would argue that we are at a similar crossroads today. And so I invite you to reach out to my office. I invite you to reach out to our party and join us in pursuing this vision for Ontario to be the global leader in the fast-emerging, clean and caring economy, to create jobs and generate prosperity in emerging markets so that we can have the financial resources and the wealth to invest in caring and inclusive communities. Communities where people have affordable places to call home, where health care is accessible whether you live in an urban center or a rural municipality, where we are connected by broadband internet everywhere and public transit available for everyone, where we clean up after ourselves and protect the people and places we love in Ontario. In short, the kinds of communities each and every person in this room goes to work each and every day to build. Merci, miigwech, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I'd now like to welcome to the stage Brian Roseborough.
Good morning, everyone. And before you leave, you might want to know that we're about to do another prize draw just before we get underway. So I'll just grab a ticket from the drum. And the winner of this prize, which is a gift basket from the city of Ottawa, is Justin Towndace. And you'll be able to pick up your prize at the fundraising ticket counter beside the registration. So good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here today to give a short update on Ontario's Main Street Revitalization Initiative. We're about halfway through the 2-year program that will inject $26 million into Main Street areas and local business communities across the province. For most of you in this room, your community's Main Street is the anchor to your local economy. Investing in these core areas helps small business succeed. And when they succeed, they create places for residents to eat, shop, and have fun right in their own communities. This helps strengthen local economies. It attracts tourists who also spend money eating and shopping and having fun in your community. When the program was launched, the Ontario government approached AMO and asked if we would administer the funding on its behalf. Of course, we immediately agreed. We modeled the administration after another successful program of infrastructure funding, and by that I'm referring to the federal gas tax program. And like the federal gas tax, AMO administers Main Street funding directly to municipal governments using an allocation formula. There's no application process, so money can be quickly directed to local priority projects. I don't think I have to tell you how helpful it is to know how much funding you're going to get from a particular program without having to go through a long application process. It allows you to plan, it allows you to budget. It respects the fact that local decision makers are in the best position to work with local businesses to identify priorities. Ultimately, it allows you to meet local needs faster and more efficiently. There are hundreds of Main Street projects happening right now. The town of Goderich directed funding to revitalize its downtown courthouse square, including improvements to the fountain feature, streetlight replacements, and purchasing and installing new self-watering planters. The city of Mississauga worked with its BIAs to identify several beautification projects that will promote small business, attract investment, and draw tourists to the area. Some of the work so far includes new benches and planters and enhanced signage in particular neighborhoods like Streetsville and Port Credit. One great thing about beautification projects is that they look good on the screen. Media events or sharing photos on social media is a great way to promote how your community is benefiting from the Main Street funding. Before I welcome our guest from the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, here is a short video highlighting the impact of the program so far.
Ontario's main streets are at the heart of our communities, serving as the anchor of local economies across the province. The Ontario government is investing $26 million to support and grow small business and boost tourism by improving Main Street areas. Funding from the Main Street Revitalization Program is delivered directly to municipal governments by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Funds can be used for things like downtown streetscaping projects, parking improvements, new street furniture, new signage, and enhancing parks and recreation facilities. Projects are happening now in municipalities across Ontario. In the town of Penetanguishene, Main Street funding was used to beautify the downtown core, creating a modern, inviting space for residents and visitors. Lively, vibrant Main Streets help small businesses and our communities thrive.
Thank you. It's now my pleasure to welcome Rick Barthume, Manager of Economic Development Resources Unit from the Ministry of the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs.
Thanks very much, Brian, and I hope everyone enjoyed that video that we had the opportunity to see. So on behalf of OMAFRA and the Honorable Minister, Ernie Hardeman, I'd like to thank AMO for their creativity and leadership in delivering this particular program for us. So why downtowns and why main streets? Well, downtowns and main streets are the heart of all our communities. Historically, downtowns and main streets were economically thriving areas. They were places where you'd find communities' major employment centers, you'd find commercial centers, you'd find small business, government buildings, and you'd find public spaces. Vibrant communities depend on a variety of businesses, specifically small businesses and entertainments, to keep them viable. Over the years, though, small businesses in particular have struggled to keep in traditional downtowns and main streets. Recognizing the role that main streets play and to help small businesses across rural Ontario, OMAFRA began to offer its downtown revitalization program back in 2005. What started out as a pilot here in Eastern Ontario with 6 communities grew into a program that has served 70 communities across Ontario well. The Downtown Revitalization Program consists of unique cultural and historical values, recognizing those in each community while guiding a process that improves the economic, physical, and social well-being of traditional town centers. So why did we invest in a Main Street Enhancement Initiative? Well, built on that Downtown Revitalization Program, a couple of years ago, we developed the new revitalization initiative that is being delivered by AMO. This program, as Brian alluded to, offers assistance to communities where they can identify key physical improvements to support small businesses and improve the competitiveness of their downtowns. Investments include support for capital improvements, also looking at things like energy efficiencies, accessibility, physical appearance, marketability, as well as investment in public infrastructure within the downtown. So in conclusion, I really want to thank AMO for their creativity and leadership in delivering this program on our behalf, and we sincerely hope that the communities that have taken advantage of this program have benefited. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you to the Ministry for their collaboration with AMO on this innovative initiative. Thanks.